The war America almost staged. Operation Northwoods, the plan that never happened. A Shadows of History documentary. Into the Shadows. Welcome to Shadows of History, where the past is not just remembered, but questioned. History is often told as a clean sequence of events, decisions made, wars fought, lessons learned. But beneath the official record lies a darker layer. Plans conceived, documents classified, and truths almost buried. Tonight's story lives entirely in that shadowed space. In the early 1960s, at the height of the Cold War, the United States faced an obsession that shaped an entire generation. Fear of communism, fear of infiltration, fear of losing global dominance. Cuba, newly aligned with the Soviet Union under Fidel Castro, sat just 90 miles from Florida. To American military planners, it was not merely a neighbor, it was a loaded gun pointed at the heart of the nation. And so, in secrecy, an extraordinary proposal was drafted, a plan so disturbing that even decades later it feels unreal. This was Operation Northwoods. The world on a knife's edge. To understand Northwoods, we must step into the atmosphere of 1962. The Cold War was no longer theoretical. Nuclear weapons were real, intercontinental missiles were operational, and mistrust defined international relations. The failed Bay of Pigs invasion had humiliated the United States and emboldened Castro. Inside the Pentagon, patience was running thin. The military leadership believed that Cuba posed an unacceptable threat, not only militarily, but ideologically. If communism could survive so close to American shores, what message would that send to the rest of the world? Public opinion, however, was not ready for another war. Any direct invasion of Cuba would require justification, something dramatic enough to rally the American people and secure international support. That justification, some believed, could be manufactured. The architects of deception. Operation Northwoods was developed by the U.S. Department of Defense and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. It was not the work of fringe extremists, but of senior military planners operating within the highest levels of authority. The proposal was formal, detailed, and chillingly calm. Northwoods suggested staging a series of false flag operations, attacks that would appear to be carried out by Cuba, but would in fact be orchestrated by the United States itself. These were not vague ideas, they were specific scenarios, carefully designed to provoke outrage, fear, and ultimately, war. The plan assumed one thing above all else, that perception mattered more than truth. If you've made it this far and enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and subscribe. It's free for you, but it helps us immensely to keep creating this kind of content. Thank you. Scenarios from a dark imagination. The documents outlined a range of possible actions. Civilian aircraft could be sabotaged or destroyed and blamed on Cuban forces. A fake passenger list might include college students or vacationers, ensuring maximum emotional impact. News headlines would do the rest. American cities could experience staged terrorist attacks. Bombings, arson, and violence would be carefully planned to look like the work of Cuban agents operating on U.S. soil. Even U.S. military installations were not off-limits. The plan suggested creating incidents at Guantanamo Bay, including fake attacks on American personnel, funerals for non-existent victims, and manipulated evidence pointing directly to Havana. In one proposal, an American aircraft could be secretly replaced with a drone, then destroyed mid-flight, allowing officials to announce the tragic loss of innocent lives. Every scenario followed the same logic: shock the public, assign blame, and remove any doubt about who the enemy was. The moral line crossed. What makes Operation Northwoods so unsettling is not only what it proposed, but what it revealed about institutional thinking. These plans accepted civilian casualties, or at least the appearance of them, as an acceptable cost. They relied on deception not just of foreign enemies, but the American people themselves. Democracy depends on informed consent. Northwoods treated consent as an obstacle. The architects believed they were acting in the nation's best interest. In their view, removing Castro justified extraordinary measures. But in crossing that moral line, they exposed a terrifying truth: that fear can push even democratic systems toward authoritarian behavior. This is where shadows of history lingers, not in condemnation alone, but in understanding how such ideas become possible. The decision that stopped it all. In March 1962, Operation Northwoods reached the desk of President John F. Kennedy. Kennedy was no stranger to Cold War pressure. He faced aggressive generals, political rivals, and an electorate hungry for strength. Yet when presented with Northwoods, his response was clear. He rejected it. There was no public announcement, no debate in Congress. The plan was quietly shelved, classified, and forgotten, at least officially. Kennedy's refusal marked a rare moment where civilian leadership decisively overruled military ambition. Some historians believe this deepened tensions between the president and the Pentagon, contributing to an atmosphere of mistrust within the government. What matters most is simple: the plan never happened, but the fact that it existed at all changes how we view power. Secrets uncovered. For decades, Operation Northwoods remained hidden behind layers of classification. It was only in the 1990s, through declassified documents and investigative research, that the public learned what had once been considered. The reaction was disbelief, followed by anger, followed by uncomfortable silence. Northwoods did not prove that governments routinely attack their own citizens, but it proved that such ideas can be seriously proposed, reviewed, and nearly approved. History, as Shadows of History reminds us, is not just about what happened, it is about what almost happened. Why Northwoods still matters. Why revisit this story now? Because the mechanisms behind Northwoods have not vanished. False narratives, manufactured consent, and information warfare are more relevant today than ever. The tools have changed: digital media replacing newspapers, algorithms replacing headlines, but the principle remains the same. When fear dominates public discourse, ethical boundaries weaken. Operation Northwoods stands as a warning etched into the archives. Democracy is not immune to manipulation from within. It survived not because the system was flawless, but because one decision stopped it. Final reflections from the shadows. At Shadows of History, we believe that confronting uncomfortable truths is not an act of cynicism, but of responsibility. Operation Northwoods forces us to ask difficult questions. How much do we trust those in power? How easily can truth be shaped? And how many stories remain hidden, waiting to be uncovered? The shadows are not always filled with villains. Sometimes they are filled with choices that define the line between protection and betrayal. This was one such choice, and history, this time, stepped back from the edge.
If you enjoyed this story and would like to see more in the future, please give us a like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and why not, write to us in the comments what other kinds of stories you'd like to see on our channel. Thank you.